Good morning folks, and welcome to the bench of Armitage leather. On my bench today I've got a bunch of irons from Kevin Lee. I'm going to be reviewing these. These are 10 SPI pricking irons. These are 12. These are the Japanese style and these are lacing irons. So we'll worry about those another time. But these are the two irons that we're going to be looking at, the style of irons. These are 12, these are 10. I'm going to stick with 10. These are quite distinctive irons. At a glance, you can see clearly they're Kevin Lee irons. They've got a lovely shape to them. They are top heavy, lots of weight up here, very sleek and slim down here. Taller than many other irons, and this video, to be fair, we're going to look at what the irons do. There's no two ways about it, but this video is a little bit more chatty than normal because there are some distinctive things that I'd like to look at. One is the long aspect of the iron. We've got 140 millimeters of steel here, which is longer than most. On average, they work out to about 120, 130 mil. These are 140. These are actually quite narrow. These are 8 tooth. A little narrow for my taste, but these are tester irons. Kevin sent these to me, so give them a go, see what you think. And that's what they're for. However, you can buy these irons in 2 tooth, or 1 tooth, 2 tooth, 8, 10, these are 8s, so 10 bigger, 12 bigger still, 20 bigger yet, or custom. So you have a phenomenal range of teeth options, basically, to whatever you can think of, because if you drop him an email, talk to him about your requirements, you can have what you want. When I was a kid, I remember, a long time ago, I remember seeing irons on workbenches that had teeth ground out. So you had like 5 teeth here, a gap, and then 12 teeth here. And that was for specific jobs. You were making bridle, and that's where you were putting in a steel keep. So that was the skip. Kevin will make those irons for you. In the olden days, you'd used to buy long irons and then grind out the teeth because it was quicker. It was cheaper to brutalise an iron to hit it once than it was to hit it with 2 different irons. So you can have things like that made, specific tools for specific jobs, and that's really interesting. The range that he offers in these irons, 14 SPI. I think, I'd be corrected. Blanchard, I do know they make them, but they're humongous and they're expensive. But apart from Blanchard, I'm struggling to think of anybody off the top of my head who's still making 14 SPI irons. Kevin Lee is. He makes 14, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 and 5 SPI irons in the tooth count mentioned. Also, all of that in reverse. Well, that's not too bad, is it? So you're working out, well, that sounds interesting. There's a huge scope there. How much do these cost? Now, because of such a huge range, it's difficult to give you a price of every one, but they range from between $20 to $70. No. From $20 to $170. But a set like this, a 2 tooth and an 8 tooth in 10 SPI, 2.7 mil, will set you back $90 US. That's £70 English, plus your import and your customs and your shipping. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. That is very, very competitive, and that's something worth considering. Now, that's for the 8 tooth and the 2 tooth. If you want the 12 tooth, 2 tooth, which is probably the option I go for, you're looking at a little bit more money. But nonetheless, that's still, if you're starting out and you want a decent set of irons, $90, 70 quid, isn't going to break the bank. Which leads me on to the materials. What's it made of? Because if you're going to spend that money, what's it made of? Now, it's difficult to find a listing of what the steel is. However, Now, these were loaned to me by Martin. A student of mine comes to me, also a very, very good and adept leather worker. He said, Nigel, take me 12s, give them a go. I'm not going to use them for a while, see what you think. So I've had a play with those as well. He's also tested these irons because he's a chief engineer. And he has said, he's tested a lot of the irons, which is, you may hear this in many of the videos. I'm just going to find the bit because I've got it written down in front of me. In fact, I'm reading off the sheet that you can download. If you look at the link at the bottom of the screen, you can go to my website and you can download this sheet along with all the other iron reviews, and you can read all the spec for yourself, where you can get it, the costing, the sizes, and so on and so forth. So he's basically said that the steel that they've used is very good quality cold work tool steel and far exceeds the strength required of a tool like this. You can't argue with that. So we've got a longer tool, we've got good steel, we've got good value. Everything's working for us at the moment. But the one thing that really interested me was these teeth. Now let me zoom in so you can have a good old look. Now, these teeth, they are 10.5 millimeters long. That's not bad. They are slender a good distance of the tooth, even at the top of the tooth. So let me get the spec of where the tooth is. So obviously right at the tip they're sharp, but up towards the body, the fattest part is 1.42 millimeters, less than 1.5 mil. Now that's narrower than some of the other teeth starting. So that's not bad. That's really, really exciting, because even if you drive these in deeper, they are designed as stitching irons, but they will penetrate, and they're sold to fully penetrate the leather. So 1.42 millimeters thick, less than 1.5 mil thick, right at the top. That's a very long, slender tooth. The width of it, 1.7. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Even at the top, it's 2.5. The fattest part. So it broadens out. Can't argue with that. Now I think we've got a 7mm working distance, because I think if we were to bring our leather to here at this point, I think everything down will give us a nice looking tooth. Pushing it to the 10mm for 10 SPI might be a little bit of a reach. So I think 7mm, but to be fair, if you stitch something at 10 SPI, then you're not going to have it anywhere near 7mm thick. You're looking at something like a fine wallet or a lovely cover or something like that. The leather's going to be thin. Awesome. These are going to do the job. But we can see that lovely brushed steel finish, but we can also see that lovely high polish on the teeth. Same on both sides. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? So that's a well-made iron. Sharp as you like. Nice long slender teeth, very slim, strong, and look good. What's not to like? Great value for money, good quality materials, well thought through. Let me zoom out a little bit. That is pretty much all I'm going to say about them. Well, I've said enough, I've waffled on for a long. Let's face it, you're not here to have a listen, you're here to have a look. If you wanted all that information, go to the website, download the sheet. Let's have a look at what it does. We've got a very long tooth, designed for slimmer applications, finer applications like wallets and fine delicate goods, a nice stitch. 10 SPI is a nice fine stitch. We're getting towards fine there. You've got to have a good command of the stitch, and the reason being is we've got our holes. And let's call 7. I will treat 7 SPI as a good starting SPI, because it's forgiving. the angle of the hole and the distance between the holes leaves enough leather to deal with issues. But as we get finer SPI, the holes begin to overlap. You have to have a good command, otherwise your stitching can deteriorate very quickly and you don't really know why. So you've got to have a good command of the stitch to deal with 10, 12, 14 SPI. But they are lovely looking irons. So we're going to deal with a nice fine thread. We're looking at 0.4, 5, 0.4, 0.35, that sort of thing. And we'll have a look. We'll do a few rows. Now, I am going to deal with a little bit of a thinner leather. I'm going to have a 1.5. We'll do this to start off with, and I'll do a couple of rows. But I thought I would also do a 2.5, 3mm piece as well, a chunky piece, to see how that copes. And we'll have a look with that. The teeth, the angle, 45 degrees. Very nice, very good angle. These irons are thought through. There's no two ways about it. Everything about them has been thought through. The design, they're very distinctive. They're very Kevin Lee. You see these, you recognise them immediately. Kevin Lee irons. Kevin's a great tool maker. He does so many other tools as well. Don't just think it's irons. There's a huge range. Lots of the companies are making a lot of tools, but he's making a huge range. Creasers, bevelers, knives, irons. Go and look at the website. And again, I'll stick a link down the bottom here, and it is https / kevinlee.global. There's a link to it on the sheet. If you download that, you can just click on it because it's hyperlinked and it'll take you straight to his site. Go and have a look. Very exciting, very interesting. I'll just Google Kevin Lee tools, it'll take you to him. Let's get the leather sorted. Let's get the irons working and see what we can do with this stitch. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the thick stuff. And on the thick stuff, I'm actually going to use the finest thread. So, I'm going to swap my glasses over because these are 10 SPI. They are for young eyes. So, because with a finer iron, we can drift off our line so much easier. And you'd think I'd set the pad up. Now you can use these irons like that. Use them to prick. In fact, that was a gentle tap and I'm almost through. We can just prick with these and then go to the awl if that's our desire. But I'm going to go through to quite deep. And the reason I'm using the thick leather first is I want to give it a good thump. And they just sail through. And goodness, I mean, I've got to be at least 4mm through the leather there. So that's really hammered in. Far too deep, far too deep. But look at that hole. How smart does that look? Let's tap it down before we go any further. Just grab my little hammer. Well, I say, look at that. Not bad at all. You've got to be happy with that. And that was going in far too deep. Right, let me keep zoomed in. I know you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm going to overlap a couple of teeth. Give it a good thump. Have a look. Just even that up a fraction. There we are, a little bit closer. Closer to 2 or 3mm. 2mm would be ideal. Drop that out. There's our hole. That's nice. That is really nice. That's a lovely hole. Let me finish this row of holes and have a look at some thread to do that justice. 3 rows of holes. 1 in a 2.5mm. 3mm, there or thereabouts. Keep on calling it 2.5mm. Well, it's 2.75, that's why I can't make my mind up. 2¾ millimeter dark brown, and 1.5 mil in the chestnut or conker. So we've got 3 rows of really lovely looking holes there. So I can put 3 threads through it, give it a bit of a push with a heavy thread, see how it chokes, and then we'll look at some lighter thread. I don't know about the thick one. I don't know which one I'm going to do. I'm probably going to get to the clam and then make the decision then. But that's the next thing. Let's go to the clam and have a look and see how this stitches. Yeah. I have some 0.45 Young Fu thread in yellow, which is going to be the heaviest thread that I'm going to use. It's going to be 0.45, 0.4, 0.35. That's how we're going down. And I thought with the heavy leather, the 2.7 mil thick leather, would use the heavy thread just to have a look. And as ever, I've done more holes than I'm actually going to use. I'm going to give it a few stitches to get a true representation of what a row looks like, but I probably won't use all the holes. Now I'm using number 4 John James needles. The hole is smaller, but the needle does not struggle at all. It sails through this hole. It's not a big hole by any stretch of the imagination. It's a nice little delicate hole for 10 stitches per inch. I would imagine if we went down to the 12 tooth or 12 SPI iron, then I may consider a slightly finer needle, but we'll have to see. But on this occasion, 10 SPI iron, I'm quite happy with how this is looking, and I'm not finding it a struggle at all. Much finer hole, going in a little less than I was to start with, but you can see I'm really not struggling. That needle goes through an absolute dream, and it doesn't look big at all. That's looking rather smart, I feel. So I'll do a couple more. Now I'm going to drop down the weight of the leather as I go down, just because I'm mixing up a little bit, I suppose. And if we were to be stitching a fine item, the chances are we'd be looking at skiving the edges, really thinning it down. So our finished edge potentially could be somewhere in the region of about 1.52 mil. So we'll have a look at it on that as well. Watch straps, those sort of things. A nice high quality thin leather. The sort of stuff you don't really see me do an awful lot, because you know, I'm the guy that over engineers the stuff, and the people want from me, my customers, heavy, over engineered outdoor leather. So that's the sort of stuff that I make. So, but I do on occasion do a little bit of fine work, and I would employ these irons. I think that'll be enough for these irons. What do we think of that? We don't think that's bad, do we? At all. Now, at the moment, what I'm not going to do is tap down. What I shall do is do all 3 rows of stitching. Then when I'm finished, I will tap them down, because we know this Yufeng thread loses its colour as soon as we apply tension. When we beat it into submission by tapping it down, the colour comes back. So we're not worried about that at the moment. We're going to snip our needles off. We will snip our threads off. I will then swap over to the brown leather, or the conker, and then we will, oh, that's quite sweet, that is. I'm happy with that. We'll have a look at the 0.4, which is next, the tiger thread, and then go back to the Yufeng 0.35. So bear with me. So we're well underway with the Ritz 24, 0.4 mil thread. Nice little thread. I like it. strong. Stitch is a dream. No pull, no stretch. Little less waxy than 25, but rub it over a block of wax before you start stitching, and that resolves that issue. Little less tension on this because the leather's a lot thinner, just enough to seat it down, but beginning to pick up quite a nice looking stitch. That's looking rather lovely. Using yellow, it goes well with the brown. Give it a bit of a rub afterwards to get rid of the wax, and it should look its best. And it also keeps its colour under tension, so tapping down should mean it stands a little more vibrant than the Yufeng. So I'm just going to do this last couple of stitches, get to the end of the clam, stop it there, and at which point then I shall pick up on the next row down with the 0.35 Yungfu thread. So let me get that sorted, go and make a cup of tea, come back in a minute. Once you get the initial stretch out of the way, it actually performs quite nicely and it behaves itself, but as ever with this Yufeng, we get this little bit of opacity, and you're not going to see it when it's on its own, but when you compare it to another colour, it stands out a little more. But when we tap it down, we'll see a true representation of what it should look like. But we're getting quite a nice stitch. Haven't changed the needle, still number 4, John James, 0.82mm thick, 50mm long, but we're just changing our thread sizes down, same iron, and it's coming out rather nice, I think. 10 SPI, it's a lovely little stitch. If you want something a little delicate, a little finer, this is a really good looking stitch. You've got to ask yourself what you're making. You look at all the reviews that I've done on the irons. We can make 7 SPI look fine with the right thread and the right iron. Doesn't have to be a very fine SPI, but you do need a reasonable command of your stitch when the holes start getting closer together. Let me take this and my thicker piece. I'm going to take it over to the anvil, smack it down. I'm not going to make you watch that, it's just too much banging. And we'll come back on the overhead, have a look and see what we think. So, be right back. So there we go. The dark brown at the top is the Yufeng 0.45. The top of the conker is Ritzer 24 0.4, and the bottom row is back to Yufeng 0.35. Now, if we look at those three together, we can see the vibrancy of the tiger shining through. However, truth be told, if we took that away and you just looked at the vibrancy of the Yungfu, then that looks absolutely fine. It's only when we compare it to another colour that we can see the colour difference and it looks a little duller. But if we stitched everything in that colour, it would look absolutely fine. And truth be told, it's a little bit of a darker yellow to start with anyway. So it's already a little dull. It's not as vibrant as perhaps it could be. But if you were to choose that in black, that would look amazing. That's a lovely little stitch. And the hole's closed up around it. All we can see is stitching. It's a very classic English style of saddle stitch, yet it's a stitching iron. It's a pricking iron that we've punched all the way through. It gives a very, very pleasing stitch. Very, very happy with that. Let's flip it over, look at the back. Always the back's going to suffer because the fibres are larger, they're further apart so it doesn't seat right, and we're stitching predominantly to the front. If you want to look at the back of your stitching, have a look at my Vimeo channel. and look at dealing with the back of a rove stitching, and that goes into a lot of detail about double pricking, pre-pricking, and how to deal with the back of a rove stitching and the reason why it gets flatter. But for now, these irons perform beautifully, give it an exceptionally pleasing stitch. I am very, very happy with them, and I think if you were to buy them, especially at this price, you'd be happy with them too. Folks, I hope that helps. Lovely little iron, lovely little demonstration of what they can do. That's stunning, can't argue with that. All three size threads, it's giving a very, very pleasing stitch. Don't get hung up on the colour. But we can see there, in fact I really like this one here. The 3.5 I think suits this SPI really, really well. A little bit choked, but still a nice stitch. Very, very nice, do like it. The 4 suits this well, but this 3.5, I think, if I had a 3.5 in a black, that would look amazing. That really would be a very, very lovely little stitch. Hope it helps. Enjoy.